weekend fire of undetermined cause has destroyed a building that housed the Altus Air Force Base Recreational Center. Damage has been estimated at $3.5 million to the building and its contents. 7 fire trucks, 5 from the base and 2 from town, responded to the call about 9:15 Saturday night. The rec center was recently remodeled, including a new interior ceiling. Apparently the fire started in the roof, and the new structure made it tough for firefighters to get to the flames.
In these buildings there was false ceilings, and the fire was trapped in between the ceilings and the roof, and it runs rampant up there. And to get through it, you've got to cut in, in various different places and try to track it down, and a fire can outrun a fireman all day long.
Air Force officials can find other structures to house base recreational functions. But buildings are a precious commodity at Altus Air Force Base. Cleanup and rebuilding is still underway after last May's tornado, which claimed at least 2 buildings. And an extra $3.5 million construction burden is not a welcome one on this base. Kurt Autry, Action 4, Altus Air Force Base.
In one way, it seems almost incredible at a time when Oklahoma is one of the 3 most prosperous states in the nation that a thing like this could happen. In another way, it seems almost inevitable that it would happen. With an economy to a large extent based on petroleum, it's hard to see the economic danger hidden behind the lush green of that economy. A swamp in the forest that we can't see for the trees, so to speak. But in good times, it's easy to forget the hard messages of history. We forget when Bill Murray, then governor of Oklahoma, had to shut down the oil fields in another boom time because the price dropped to 10 cents a barrel. Well, that's not likely to happen again, but there will be ups and downs in the oil industry, and in this case, the upper became a downer. But as always, we can learn from a bad experience. We must recognize that now is the time to plan for our future in Oklahoma, and it is not solely dependent upon the oil industry. While our state grows and stays strong from oil, we must develop other industry and other jobs for that time when the drilling is over and the production is stopped. It is that long-term money that will prevent future bank failures and spreading poverty to reach this state that is so full of opportunity. It's true that man's best teacher is his failure, and there's a heck of a lesson to be learned here. This is Jack Ogle at Penn Square Bank.
A few days before the word was even official that Penn Square Bank might go under, people began withdrawing their funds, cautiously taking out some or all of their money. But after the bank was officially declared insolvent, hundreds of depositors have lined up to get their money. Assurances from bank officials that insured depositors would get all their money back and that Penn Square Bank checks would be honored seem to fall on deaf ears. Thousands of customers have made it clear they simply want their money. So bank officials have promised to leave the bank open 24 hours a day if necessary to accommodate customers. But so far, bank officials haven't found it necessary to stay open 24 hours. 5 o'clock in the morning doesn't seem like a sane hour to be awake, much less at the bank. But for Penn Square Bank customers, 5 o'clock may become the only time to avoid a line. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
It can take as long as 2 hours to get into the bank. These people came here to get their certificates of deposit. Some of them came fully prepared. They brought chairs so they wouldn't have to stand up the whole time. The bank closed between 1,000 and 2,000 accounts on Tuesday. Those accounts totaled between $10 and $20 million. The man who's now running the bank hopes to close things out pretty quickly.
I would hope by a month things would be pretty well wound down, and maybe after say 60 days things would really be wound down quite a bit.
Customers had a variety of reactions to the bank's closing.
I feel sad that the bank has collapsed, but I'm not worried about getting our money or anything like that. I We were sad,
Yesterday I heard on the news that the recession was over. I guess they missed the deadline or didn't listen to the news.
This is just one of them things that'll happen, I guess.
You know, in your lifetime, you take a lot of hard knocks along the road, and you just grin and bear it and go on.
And some people were trying extra hard to go on.
We appreciate your business for coming up here. We're solid as a rock and ball. We've been in business for 75 years.
Woody Hunt of First Bank of Britain passed out business cards.
You an honest man?
Yes, sir, just as honest today, and our bank's just as solid as a rock of Gibraltar.
Oh, there you go. You can't stay on.
We haven't got any all along, not one.
Northern Oklahoma wheat producers have experienced numerous problems this year. Now they're facing yet another one, weeds.
That's the problem here, right here. That's the problem. What is this called? Wild buckwheat.
There ain't no way that you can run that through a combine and get it into the elevator, because the last batch that I tried to cut, and it wasn't near as bad as what you've seen right here, was running over 19% moisture, and they just flat don't want it.
The chemical paraquat is the answer, they say. It would dry up the weeds. But paraquat has been banned for use on wheat by the Environmental Protection Agency.
Frustrating to have all these acres and not be able to help the farmer.
This aerial applicator says paraquat can be used on soybeans and cotton, but the tolerance level when used on wheat doesn't meet EPA standards.
It would just dry this up as dry as the straw in about 3 days. And we could get in and harvest our crop and salvage what little we could.
Sheber and other farmers in Kay County are trying to get an emergency label so they can use the chemical this year. Extension agent Larry Fleck says if they aren't allowed to use paraquat, farmers in this county alone could lose up to $10 million. Ben McCain, Action 4, near Ponca City in Kay County. Sailboats, the Stars and Stripes Park, and softball fields. All are a part of the Lake Hefner scene. Something else will be added to the list soon. It's Lake Hefner Trails. What we're talking about is a jogging track. Judy Harrison is one of the avid supporters of this project. She says once it's built, it'll be the first of its kind in Oklahoma City.
I think Lake Hefner Trails will help improve the image of the lake, provide another situation for people to come and experience the lake, and then hopefully in the long run help clean up the entire lake by bringing together all the things that are already going on here.
This is going to be an expensive project. Is it going to cost taxpayers any money?
No, it's not. We're trying to privately fund this project, and it is a long-range project. It is going to take more than 1 year to do it and to get it in. It's in phases. So we're asking for private donations, and it will not be taxpayers' money.
Construction of Phase 1 of this project is scheduled to begin by August 15th. Now, the 3 jogging trails should be completed by the end of October. Supporters of Lake Hefner Trails are urging everyone to get ready to jog. Ben McCain, Action 4, Lake Hefner.
Fried chicken, country music, and a lot of handshaking was the order of the day at the Zoo Amphitheater as Governor George Nigh kicked off his re-election campaign. Nigh announced his intention to run for re-election in March, but according to the governor, now the campaign is in full swing. Nigh says he plans to run on his record, but he did admit today the state may be experiencing a slight falter in the economy.
Not as good as before, but not as bad as before. So you can't always have a peak year. Energy, anything levels off. So I would say our economy is not going to be bad, but it won't be growing at the same rate that it's been growing.
But kickoff parties aren't the only social function on the governor's agenda. $10,000 of Nigh's campaign fund fell victim to the Penn Square Bank liquidation, so fundraisers can't be too far away. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
Oklahoma County Democrats moved into their new headquarters Sunday afternoon. The new facility will be the base for several Democratic candidates. The Democrats are confident this will be their year.
I think the Democrat Party is still the party of the people, and the party of the good working people and the farmers and folks like that are going to be more interested in supporting this year.
Where do you live in our area?
Congressman Glenn English has already opened an office in the building. He's been joined by State Representative Mike Lauder and Don Lane, who's opposing Congressman Mickey Edwards. Governor George Nigh and District Attorney Bob Macy may open offices here as well. Besides free office space and furniture, the headquarters will provide volunteer help and staffing to receive telephone calls and greet visitors. The Oklahoma County Democratic Chairwoman thinks the offices will play an important part in helping the Democrats to big wins in November.
We're trying to pull all the Democrats together and the Democrat candidates together this year, and so we're trying to put all the Democrat headquarters, candidates' headquarters under one roof where we can work together as a group and pull together as a Democratic group.
The Democratic theme song is Happy Days Are Here Again, and these Democrats think those happy days are just a few months away. Bill Ross, Action 4 at Democratic County Headquarters.
Are you
Glass bottles scattered in city parks has become so unsightly that the Oklahoma City Council has decided to get tough. At its next meeting, the council will consider an ordinance to ban all glass containers from city parks. However, some city leaders feel such an ordinance could lead to banning all cans next, and anything else that may create litter. Still, a random survey shows many park goers would like to see the glass ban pass.
I think it's a good idea.
Why?
Glass is always dangerous, no matter what you do with it. And I think most people now use paper anyway. It's much more, you don't litter so much, and you can put it in containers and throw it away and all that.
I think they should ban bottles because I think they ought to use more cans, and they just don't need bottles. It's stupid to have glass around parks.
Saves a lot of people getting cut. There's just no reason for so much breakage, destroying the property, and invariably kids come along and they like to break the glass. And it would just save lots of cleanup and other people getting hurt.
There are some items that can be found at picnics which also come in glass containers, but the proposed ordinance was aimed more at beverages. City officials say not to worry, most things that come in glass can usually be found in plastic too. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
The sheep and wool industry in the state of Oklahoma is growing. Even though the lamb industry is facing its traditional summer slump, Oklahomans are optimistic times will get better. But with their optimism, they also have some concerns. One of the major concerns deals with the disease called Scrapie. It's a lot like muscular dystrophy in humans. It can be disastrous for sheep and wool producers.
We do not know what caused it for sure, so therefore they slaughter everything that comes in contact. They don't know where it's catching or where it's inherited, so anytime it breaks out, well, they slaughter everything in the flock.
Howard, the largest purebred sheep producer in the Southwest, says when the government destroys a flock, producers are compensated, but the payments aren't worth much. He wants to see the government do more study on this dreaded disease. He doesn't feel government officials should be in such a hurry to destroy a man's livelihood. Ben McCain, Action 4.
It took a while, but a decision on who will manage the Oklahoma State Fair has been tentatively decided. The Fair Board and city leaders, both realizing the state fair has become a very profitable business, have been renegotiating their current contract for months. At the city council meeting, the last details were worked out, and all involved couldn't be happier the talks are finally over.
I've certainly been critical of this contract in the past and some of the things out there, and there was a time when I didn't think we were ever going to get here, but I certainly appreciate the spirit of cooperation which you and the Fair Board and your new attorney have, gotten in and worked on this, and I think that we've got something now that can accrue to the best interests of the city, and I'm more than happy to support it.
The city will continue to let the Fair Board operate the fair, but the city wanted and received more control over the fair's profits, and Oklahoma City will eventually stop subsidizing the fair's $700,000 a year upkeep bill. Both sides are expected to sign a formal agreement in 2 weeks. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Welfare Department attorneys Tom Tucker and Pam Padley were in hot water because they refused to hand over 2 young adoptees as ordered by Special Judge Donald Manning. The Welfare Department felt the children should remain with a family chosen by the department. The lawyers tried to persuade the state Supreme Court to help them out of the mess. They filed a stack of motions which claimed that removing the kids from their trial adoptive home would hurt the foster family. Supreme Court Chief Justice Pat Irwin agreed to temporarily suspend the lower court ruling. He set a hearing on his order for Monday afternoon.
I think that the Department of Human Services, in taking us to the Supreme Court 3 times on the same case, are deliberately delaying my client's justice.
The attorney representing the other family which wants the children was disappointed by the latest development. She says she'll file counter motions in the case as soon as possible. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the state capitol.
It all started at All Souls Episcopal Church, when on July 2nd, the church removed its funds, totaling almost $500,000, from Penn Square Bank to Fidelity Bank. 4 days later, Fidelity presented the checks at Penn Square, but in the meantime, Penn Square had been declared insolvent, and the FDIC had taken over. The new occupants of Penn Square Bank cashed the $500,000 worth of cashier's checks, but later turned around and demanded the money back, claiming they owned the checks. Of course, All Souls also considered themselves the owner, so Fidelity Bank filed this lawsuit, asking the court to decide whose money it is. Since the case hasn't come up yet, the facts surrounding the lawsuit are a little foggy, so we asked those involved to give us a clearer picture. First, we tried to talk to the people who filed the lawsuit here at Fidelity Bank. The bank's chairman of the board refused to talk with us on camera. First of all, because he had already made plans to play golf. Second of all, because he said he felt the lawsuit was not a news story. We then turned to the defendants. In order to get a comment from the FDIC, you have to call Washington, D.C. So we did.
Information office.
Yes, is Alan Whitney there, please?
No, I'm sorry, he isn't.
Could you tell me when he'll be in, please?
Next Monday.
Next Monday. We tried to contact someone else in the agency who could help us, but got the same results.
Our bosses are in a meeting this afternoon. Could I have someone return your call, ma'am?
Yes, if you would, please. They never called back, so we tried 2 more times. The first time, the men were still in a meeting, and the second time, they'd left the office. Finally, we came here to the All Souls Episcopal Church. The people inside have been told not to talk to us by their attorney, and their attorney refuses to comment on the case as long as it's pending. So we can only tell you that each party feels they're in the right, but we can't tell you why. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at the All Souls Episcopal Church.
The unique problems inside the agency, the unique requirements in terms of the relationship of it to the federal government and the relationship of it to other agencies and so forth, are better known by people inside the agency than would be the case with someone coming in from the outside. Now, on the other hand, there's a second school of thought that, and I think the governor spoke to this in his comments this week, that there might be some advantage to having an individual come in from the outside to provide a totally fresh look at the situation.
Voting for a new Ward 4 city councilman should have been a fairly simple procedure, but it didn't turn out that way. Residents in southeast Oklahoma City thought the May 11th election would decide the outcome, since there were only 2 candidates trying to fill the seat vacated by Bill Bishop. When the voting was over, Pete White was declared the winner by 86 votes, except the would-be loser, Bob McKillips, found out that 96 of the people who voted in the Ward 4 election did not even live in Ward 4, thus forcing the court to order a new election on August 3rd. This is 5415 South Chartille. For years, residents in the area have been coming here casting their ballots for city councilmen. Except this past January, the ward lines were redrawn. This is now part of Ward 5. Only thing is, no one told the poll workers or the residents who live here. Ward 4 and Ward 5 look like this today, after the new ward lines went into effect. But some people were under the impression the boundaries had not changed and were going by the old ward lines. This shows the old boundaries. The shaded section on the map points out where the wards switched areas. The Oklahoma County Election Board never did let residents in those areas know about the ward changes. Trying to fill the Ward 4 council seat has never taken so long. Election Board officials say they simply didn't have enough time to notify all those who would be affected by the change. And now it will cost $6,000 tax dollars toward a new election to finally have a full council. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Welfare Department attorneys came to the Supreme Court to argue that little Jeffrey and Amanda should stay with the adoptive family chosen by the Human Services Department. Their position was simple. Children shouldn't be removed from their adoptive home unless the new family is unfit. On the other side, Michael and Jeannie Bauman wanted the High Court to uphold the lower court's decision, giving them custody of the youngsters. Their attorney argued that the Welfare Department had placed Amanda and Jeffrey just one day before the Baumans were awarded custody. The Baumans' position was also simple. The kids would not be damaged if moved. The attorney representing the kids argued that the best thing for his clients would be for the Supreme Court to dismiss the case and uphold the trial court's decision.
I don't like to see these matters become any more protracted than necessary because the children become older, insecurities are formed, things of that nature that really lend to a turbulent childhood as opposed to a passive one like every child should have.
It was obvious from the court's questioning that this custody battle will be a hotly debated topic between the justices. However, since the future of these kids will remain in legal limbo pending the outcome of this case, the Supreme Court is expected to rule quickly. perhaps within the next few days. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Doug disappeared over a month ago from here, Memorial Park. Oklahoma City police immediately set up a command post at the park and began a long, fruitless search of the neighborhood. Leads were called in daily to the post, and men were sent out to check them by car, on foot, and in some cases even on horseback. But there was still no sign of Doug. A $5,000 reward was offered, hoping to entice anyone with information. But police still came up empty-handed.
Early in the investigation, we developed information about 24-year-old Oscar Johnson. We continued to pursue that particular angle throughout the investigation, and in doing so, developed information regarding 4 incidents totally unrelated to Douglas Dixon. During the course of the investigation, we filed charges against Johnson. We continued to look into the city parks, trying to locate Johnson and Douglas Dixon, unsuccessfully.
New information came in that Johnson could be found in Tulsa's parks. So Detective Willard Page went to Tulsa and, as luck would have it, found Oscar Page as well as Doug Dixon in Riverside Park. When Doug's parents got the word, they were easily the happiest couple in Oklahoma City.
About 4:17 to be exact this afternoon when he called us up at the office and said they found Doug. And I guess I hit every red light coming back to the house to tell Peggy. It just seems that way. I got to say, you know, the media, Channel 4, all helped us. And in fact, the police department, they're one fantastic group of people. It's just really hard to comprehend what we're feeling right now.
After over a month of painful separation, the Dixons will spend this night as a family. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Well, I try to keep a fairly optimistic outlook. You know, with the help of the Oklahoma City Police Department, that was fairly easy. They're pretty good in dealing with people. And so I basically feel a lot better today than I did yesterday, you know, at this time. But no, it's just optimistic and a lot of relief. It really is.
I'm going to a new job. I'm the first man to hold this job. This is not a traditional Chamber of Commerce executive post. I wouldn't have looked twice at it. They're bringing me in just as David Rockefeller, when he left the Chase Manhattan Bank, became chairman of the board of the New York Partnership because the city of New York said we're not going to make it without greater leadership. These urban areas recognize that we've got to find a new way to manage the problems facing the American metropolitan areas.
That was today. Times changed, and so did priorities. 4 years ago, Dr. Banowsky told Action 4's Steve Newman that higher education was his life.
I chose some years back the work of higher education. In fact, I think to work in higher education is the most gratifying experience. Since the days of the ancient Greeks, when we first built these academies where scholars would be able in a relaxed and reflective fashion to teach and lead young people, these institutions have had a wonderful tradition.
There are many reasons Dr. Banowsky was so successful during his tenure at OU. The greatest of those may have been his philosophy he adopted several years ago.
I would like to feel that I am very accepting of every person, very approving at the deepest human level of every individual human being as a person, but that I don't have to be asked to endorse every idea that comes along. every notion that somebody dreams up. I distinguish between issues and ideas on the one side and persons on the other side.
In an exclusive interview with Action 4 last night on The Update, I asked Dr. Banowsky what he felt was his greatest accomplishment while at OU.
Well, I would hope really the establishment of a different tone. You know, I could say we did a library building, which doubled the library, or other construction programs, but I think the establishment of a climate, Jerry. I came when the university was frankly a little demoralized. The faculty had not had faculty pay increases, and people felt that the university was maybe heading the wrong direction. And so to be able to feel that working with my colleagues and alumni and others that we turned the spirit around, I would hope that and that will continue.